Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Indra, FGO's newest limited 5-star AoE Lancer. He's come to us here with the new Lotto event on JP, and he is an AoE quick Lancer. He's limited, and he is the basically Indian equivalent to Zeus. So naturally, there's a lot of lore questions involved, stuff like that, particularly the rules about, us being able to summon gods and such, but it is what it is. Indra's a really interesting unit. Obviously, at this point in the game, there are a ton of AoE Lancers. There's a ton of competition, but he's coming in a pretty solid state, and he has quite a few quirks to his kit that we're going to talk about here. So let's just go ahead, dive right in, kind of talk to you guys about his numbers right off the bat here. So first off, you guys can see Indra actually does have about 12.3k attacks. It's definitely on the higher end of attack scales. It's certainly a nice number to see, but he's going to trade that for about 13.7k HP. That's not the best. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit more of an anemic thing. It's going to be a concern for him, especially as a 5-star, but we should be okay in the grand scheme of things due to the way his kit works. He does have Sky Attribute as his primary one, and then he does also have 89 star absorption, which is a little bit low for his class, star generation rate of 12.1, which is okay, and then an NP charge attack rate of 0.55 here, which is again another like average number and perfectly fine. He's got the standard Lancer NP charge defense of 4%, and a death rate of 24%. His alignment is neutral balanced, and his gender is unknown, even though I keep referring to him as he, but that's just, again, because Indra is the king of the gods, so to speak, in the Indian pantheon. His basic traits are Divine Spirit, Divinity, Group Servant, Humanoid, Immune to Pigify, King, Loved One, Non-Hominidae Servant, Writing, Normal Servant, 7 Night Servant, and Weak to Enema Elish. And in stage 1, he will also be Levitating. His deck here is Double Quick, Double Buster. This is actually perfect for a Summer Scotty type of support setup, as this does allow him the sort of maximal card utility there. But even his Singular Arts card does have a good, strong 4 hits. Definitely something that's going to help him out. And you can actually see his hit counts all around are pretty much above average. The only one being average actually being his extra attack at 5 hits. The other ones at 4 hits or higher are each just better than that. Looking at his active skills now, this first one is going to be the one that you're really going to need to wrap your head around. And I'm actually going to deviate from how I normally do things here to kind of talk about this a little bit. So his first skill here charges his own NP gauge. It's a 50% charge. It's also going to grant himself an on-buff activate buff here for 1 turn. Again, that 1 turn is significant. Pay attention to that so that you guys understand how this is going to work for you. This is going to charge his own NP gauge by 10% whenever he receives healing or HP up. This does not include things like regeneration buffs that heal per turn, and this does not include sources from craft essences, command codes, or things like guts, at least from our initial testing here. What it does include is obviously the healing from Indra's own NP, and potentially things like a Mystic Code. So that is conspicuously left out, and it's something that you can abuse. So naturally, you can use other sources of healing direct from another character, or Indra's own self-healing, or again, a Mystic Code to help him get 10% charge. And you can abuse this in a lot of ways. The reason I'm going to do things out of order here is because it's worthy of noting during this first skill that Indra also has a passive called Heavy Drinker EX that increases his own healing received by 20%. It's also going to grant himself an on-activate buff that does the exact same thing as his first skill. So he will always have this effect in play, but when he activates his first skill, he will have a double up of it for that 1 turn. So that means any heal that you do while the first skill is active would grant him not 10%, but 20% charge, because he's always going to get 10% from his passive, and then he's going to gain an additional 10% if the first skill is also active from that same heal. So again, you can double stack this and use this to great effect and get even more charge for Indra. His second skill here is going to end up being his triple steroid effect. This is going to grant him quick, arts, and buster performance for 3 turns of 20% each, and it's also going to grant himself a buff on attack that whenever he basically increases his own quick performance by 10% when he's going to be using a buster or arts card, and then increases his own critical damage by 10% for 3 turns whenever he's using a quick card. So definitely an interesting one there, as you can also just use this in general to, say, pre-card his NP to make his NP hit stronger, or again, use his quick cards to just make his crits hit harder. So definitely really good for him, both doing mighty chains and again, just in general trying to like combine this into a brave chain of some sort for him. His third skill here is going to increase his own attack for 3 turns by 30%, and then it's also going to grant him 2 separate power mods, 3 turns, 30% each. The first power mod is going to be anti-serpent or dragon, and then the second one is going to be anti-demonic. These two can be combined, but serpent or dragon cannot be. It's just that first one is going to be a qualifier. It's like if you're serpent or dragon, you'll get the 30%. Not if you're serpent and dragon, you get double that. So again, that one will be its own. Demonic will be a separate one. So demonic plus the serpent or dragon can be combined, but you can't combine in between that first set. This will increase his own critical damage as well by an additional 30% for 3 turns. It's just kind of his steroid type of skill for him, and really going to help him get a little bit more niche damage out of it. His passive skills include magic resistance for some additional debuff resistance, riding A in order to increase the performance of those 5-hit quick cards, so definitely really nice there, and independent action B, increasing his own critical damage. He'll also have divinity A-, which is kind of weird that the king of the Indian pantheon doesn't have the highest tier of divinity, but I digress. Again, this is just some additional flat damage added for him. He's got Thousand Eyes EX, which is a unique passive that increases his own critical star generation rate by 10%, kind of helping that lower amount that he had, and his critical damage by an additional 10%. And then, as we mentioned before, he has the Heavy Drinker EX passive that works in the exact same way as his first skill, just always being online. For his Append skills here, obviously the Append skills are the same as everybody else, with the exception being the third one. He has anti-Lancer attack damage aptitude. You could certainly go after this, but to me now, with the way coins are in the game and the fact that you can shift your Appends around, mana loading is going to be one of your first concerns with him. Potentially something like skill reloading or special attack finesse, or again, extra attack finesse. So to me, the third skill is actually the odd man out. It's probably the least effective for most scenarios. But I do recommend mana loading probably as the primary one that you want for him. His Noble Phantasm is really interesting because it's a 6-hit AoE quick Noble Phantasm, but it starts out by just buff stripping completely every enemy. Before damage ever goes out, it is going to completely remove everything the enemy has on, assuming that it can be removed. What does that mean? Well, buff removal resistance would potentially stop it, as well as things like a bordered icon on a challenge quest. Any sort of buff like that will not be able to be removed by this. But otherwise, yes, he's going to be completely capable of just carving through enemies like butter because they're not going to be able to stop him. He's then going to deal damage to them, and then after the damage goes out, which remember, damage is what triggers refund for a character, he'll generate his natural Noble Phantasm refund, and then he's going to recover his own HP by 3,000. The reason I'm stating this, and the reason it's significant, is because this heal is also going to activate his passive and potentially his first skill and give him more charge after his NP. Indra's refund is actually not that great. He's a 50% charging unit, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But with this extra heal, we're going to get a little bit of extra charge as well. His overcharge effect is a NP damage scaling one here. It's definitely nice. It's 10% base, scales all the way up to 30% at 500% to overcharge, but it does activate first. Unfortunately, it's only 1 turn in duration, so it's a little bit extra, and it will be present on every NP, but it won't be necessarily the strongest effect. Also, one other thing before we start going into craft essences, talking about his bond CE, it is significant because this is the only craft essence that actually can apply the effect of his passive and first skill if you do manage to get it and use it on him. Again, this one is going to be kind of nice for that sort of thing, but I'm going to say this is more of a consideration for, you know, units like grand versions of a unit and less so for taking on him on a normal day-to-day basis. But it's definitely something that could be really, really powerful on him given the effects that you guys see. All right, next up, with regards to craft essences on him, we're not going to need anything that really has invuln pierce or anything like that, because again, he has the ability to buff remove. Maybe in an odd scenario in a challenge environment you might, but I'm going to say for the majority of the time on Indra, you're probably going to be looking at a good, again, sort of Black Grail type of scenario, or worst case scenario if you're trying to use him in a mixed setup, maybe a good 50% C. Something like Traces of Christmas, or even, I don't know, something like Knights of Marines or something like that. Some sort of quick up CE that can kind of help out his refund and his damage output. Taking a look at his actual refund scenarios here, there's a whole lot going on, as you guys can see. Basically, Indra ends up having his passives that can come into play. Obviously, there's the different classes that can come into play. And then naturally, there's going to be the different sort of like refund scenarios, like how many enemies are in a wave. And that sort of thing's going to factor into a lot of scenarios and just really dictate how much he can refund. To be honest, the maximal type of refund you're probably going to see yourself able to get with him is around 50 to 60%. You're definitely not going to be full refunding with him anytime soon. But let's be honest, I'm going to assume in most cases you're going to be refunding around 20 to 30% with him. And that's not bad, especially given that you can certainly have that extra charge, that extra heal coming off of things. So I don't think Indra's going to be a bad looper by any stretch of the imagination. We're going to be able to use him with Black Grail. We're going to be able to get the most damage we possibly can out of him. So I think in that regard, he's still going to be a pretty capable enemy, or sorry, pretty capable unit. He'll certainly be a capable enemy, as again, you're not going to want to run into his buff removal there. But I do think he's certainly going to be fine for you guys on a refund basis, and he's not going to be a unit that you're going to have to worry about that too much with. Now, taking a look at Indra's self damage here, obviously his damage is nice. It's not the best thing ever. It's just going to be something where if his power mods are in play, he's going to do solid numbers. If they're not, you maybe might be looking elsewhere for a different option, but it's not like he's still serviceable even when none of those power mods are in effect. So in that regard, I think Indra's self-buff numbers are pretty fine. They're nothing to like scream about and be like, oh my god, they're insane, but they're not bad either. Taking a look at his actual damage numbers here, you guys can see this is basically going to end up being Indra in a scenario with double Summer Scotty and Oberon as his third support and a level 100 Black Grail. So kind of a maxed out NP1 Indra here with a Neo 10 plug or level 10 Neo plug suit here. So NP1, we're going to be looking at, relatively pedestrian numbers there for wave 1 and wave 2. Nothing bad, nothing concerning, but nothing great either. But wave 3, we're certainly getting that Oberon spike and getting some good solid numbers. And remember, these are neutral numbers still, but these are neutral numbers at least with the effects of not only his own buffs, but also the buffs from the additional supports. When we start getting one of the 30% power mods in play, naturally the numbers are going to get a little bit better. Same thing with 2 of them in play, and you're almost knocking on the door to 400k there, neutral damage in that final wave. So definitely not bad. NP2 definitely going to bump those numbers up quite a bit. He's going to get good scalability there just due to the strength of his overall kit. Now let's talk about some of these charge scenarios for how you might use Indra in relation to the types of nodes that you're going to run into. The first scenario you guys can see on the screen here is going to be a 2-2x neutral one. We're going to start out by using Indra's 50% charge skill. Basically, we're going to be using a Summer Scotty, a Nero Bride, and Oberon here. And the reason we're going to be working in, say, Nero Bride in a scenario like this, quick units work really well with NP gain-based units. They're also going to work, at least in his case, work really well with somebody that has a heal on them. Nero Bride does have one of those, so we're going to go ahead and pop her 30% charge skill there, turn 1. That's going to bring him up to 80% without even the mana loading being considered. And then down here, you guys can see we are going to give him 20% charge from his first skill being active, his passive always being active, and Nero Bride healing him. That's going to get him 20% right there off the bat to bring him to full charge. He's then going to fire off his Noble Phantasm, but within the course of that same turn, his NP will heal after the damage goes out, giving him 20% charge from that. So that's where you're going to get a little bit of extra refunds. Now in wave 2, we can see he gets 20% of that's going to come from his NP's own healing. 10% of that is now going to come on wave 2, as we are going to be using the Mystic Code skill to the Neo Plug Suit skill to heal him. It's actually going to be meta for Indra because of that additional heal effect that it can bring. So you get a little bit more charge there in combination with his refund. That's going to actually give us 50% right there off of that. So the Summer Scotty is going to give us her 50% charge. That's going to bring him to full. He's going to NP another time. Now this time he doesn't have his skill 1 in effect. So his NP will heal him, but it's only going to give him 10% charge instead. From there, he's going to have 20% refund again. So that's going to be 30% now that you have between those two effects. And then Oberon's 70% should be enough there to work. So even in a 2-2 wave neutral environment, Indra's still going to be capable of looping even from 0. Now with a 3-3X neutral environment, obviously things like this get easier. We can maybe get away with something like double Summer Scotty. We're going to start out with Indra's 50% charge. Basically use both the Summer Scotty's buffs there, and we're actually going to start out with Nero Bride. We're going to use her skills, use her heal, rotate her out, bring in the second Summer Scotty, and then use Summer Scotty's buffs. But anyways, that's going to end up bringing us up to full again. He's going to fire off the NP. He's going to refund about that 40% mark now in this one, but then he's also going to get 20% from the heal effect from wave 1 and his passive off of his NP. That's going to bring him up to 60. A Summer Scotty is going to bring him up to full. Then in wave 3, a Summer Scotty again is going to give him another 50%. The refund's going to give him 40, and his own heal off his NP is going to give him 10% there coming into that turn. So basically you're looking at 100% charge on both of those. Against Berserkers, it's kind of more of the same, but we can actually get away with, say, a 2-unit type of system here. So 2 support units that are going to work instead of something like a plug suit. Instead, we're going to be using Mage Association. So right off the bat, you can see we're going to utilize him with his own 50% charge skill and a 50% CE in this scenario. So again, something like Traces of Christmas or something. That'd bring him up to full. You have him go ahead and fire off the NP. And he will basically grant himself 20% charge off the back end of his NP, also granting himself 20% refund. Now you're at 40%. Then we're going to use the skill 1 on the Mage Association Mystic Code, the heal there, to give him an additional 10% here in turn 2. Now you're at 50%. Summer Scotty gives another 50, and you're at full. And then as we fire off the Noble Phantasm another time, he's going to end up getting 10% off of the heal on that. Get 20% refund off of his NP naturally, and then we're going to use the 20% charge from the Mystic Code to get him back to 50% a second time here. And then there, we're going to end up utilizing the other Summer Scotty's 50% charge, and that's enough to complete his 3-turn loop in that scenario. The last couple scenarios here, I'm not gonna waste too much time talking about. I think you guys get the picture here, but you can see we have a scenario in which there's a 2-2 X type of scenario where if you get 3 out of 12 overkill hits in wave 2 and wave 3, you can manage the refund. And this is just going to basically be double Summer Scotty with Oberon in a 2-2X environment. Or again, 3-3X against, say, Berserkers. This would still work depending on what you're going through. But again, I'm not going to step through them step by step with you guys because I think you guys get the picture there. Okay, so again, revisiting his damage numbers, as you guys know, Indra was obviously doing okay, but not necessarily the best. And now we're going to compare him to what about some of these other units that are out here. So obviously with him being a quick AoE Lancer, someone like Bradamante is going to be some stiff competition for him. She's gotten some upgrades over the years that have helped her out, but honestly, she's going to kind of get trounced by Indra because even when her super effective Earth trait is in play in a double Summer Scotty and Black Grail scenario, she's just still going to lose in this environment. This is not a good scenario for someone like Bradamante to be in, and it does kind of reek of Bradamante needing yet another buff here. Same thing, basically, if we look at Britomart, though Britomart does have a little bit better of niches and damage output, you can see her numbers are wholly better, and she's actually going to be competitive with Indra, and at least has the capability, if the situation is right, to basically allow for more damage. But keep in mind, these are neutral numbers, so again, her being against a rider would always be neutral, not effective, so that 550 number does certainly look good. But if you were, say, facing off against, say, an assassin or something against a rider, they don't even need to get to 550. They can basically get half of that, and they would still pull the same number due to the effectiveness at play there. Similarly, we also have Ryoma Lancer. This is going to be our 5-star AoE arts variant of him. And he certainly at least has some good base damage and can pull some good numbers thanks to his recent upgrade on JP. But obviously, you're going to have Indra having some upward capability. Lartoria also has come a long way now. She's, at least in comparison to someone like Indra here, definitely going to have a little bit better raw numbers, and really she just has more upward scalability compared to him due to her power mods and just base numbers being good. She naturally has a lot more buffs already just kind of baked into her kit now due to her upgrades, and it's really helped her out and allowed her to flourish now in the kind of state of things that JP has seen in the Lancer category. And then last but not least, the elephant in the room, so to speak, is going to be Melisande. And you guys can see, even after all this time, it's not that you can't beat Melisande's numbers, it's that Melisande's numbers are difficult to beat, considering her raw power is just that strong. This is why the devs kind of do need to revisit how they're balancing the Lancer class, because at this point, it's difficult to get anybody to roll for a new Lancer when they already have Melisande. And that, I think, is a mistake of the devs creating, and it's just something they're going to have to deal with. If you're a Melisande fan, obviously you don't care about that, and you're perfectly fine with it. But frankly speaking, trying to get anybody to roll on other Lancers when one Lancer just beats everybody in pretty much all scenarios, not a good environment to have. And that is one of the issues I think the devs now have, trying to release Indra into this environment. You have a unit like Melisande out there, and frankly, several other Lancers that are stronger than him, and it's going to be difficult to tempt people to roll if they don't just immediately find his character and design appealing. Now, let me know what you guys think about Indra. Do you feel like he maybe should have been a little bit stronger? How do you feel about them giving us a god in FGO directly without any sort of, pseudo or like inhabitant that they're doing? And do you feel like the Lancers are in a good spot now, or do you think there maybe needs to be more adjustments? I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Also, let me know if you're rolling for him, and I will see you guys for the next one. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're almost to 18,000 subs. We'll celebrate with a barbecue mukbang when that happens. Dad, remember the background? No! No!